Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the first video of Dragon Slayer. In this video, I'm going to tell you why, as a Chinese citizen, I wish my country never existed, coming right up after the intro. I would like to dedicate the content of this video to Jimmy Lai, a Hong Kong media tycoon, and Agnes Chow, a 23-year-old activist in Hong Kong, along with many other Hong Kong democracy activists arrested by the Chinese government in the name of national security. We all know that when dictators talk about national security, they're in fact talking about their own insecurity. Jimmy Lai and Agnes Chow are not criminals. They are heroes. They are an inspiration not only to the freedom-loving Hong Kongers, but also to everyone who fights against repressive regimes. This is the reason why I am starting this YouTube channel. I'm making a pledge to myself, but also to everyone who is watching, that as long as I can still speak on this platform, I should denounce dictatorships everywhere, from Hong Kong to Bangkok, from Ankara to Tehran, from Caracas to Moscow, from Minsk to Beijing. We are living in the 21st century, and nobody should be wearing a mask when they criticize their government on YouTube for fear of imprisonment. And yet that's exactly what I'm forced to do. So, whoever is watching this video, if you believe that your country is a repressive regime where the rule of law is non-existent and civil liberties and human rights are under threat or absent, please subscribe this channel, and I would like to hear your stories. Let's stand together to expose the evil regime that has been oppressing you and the people you care about. Now, let's get back to today's topic. I'd like to list some of the atrocities that the Chinese Communist Party has committed since the foundation of the People's Republic of China in 1949, up until the death of Mao. Then in the next video, I'm going to talk about all the horrendous things that the CCP did after Mao's death, up to the current events such as Hong Kong democracy movement and the ongoing global health crisis. So, let's begin. Months before the CCP took control of the entire Chinese mainland, it had already launched the so-called land reform. This campaign involved massive killings of landlords by tenants encouraged and even endorsed by the regime. Based on an article written by journalists from Washington Post, Valerie Strauss and Daniel Southry, the numbers of killings were estimated to be between 1 to 4 million from 1948 to 1951. Almost concurrently, another purge was launched by the Chinese Communist Party called Campaign to Suppress Counter-Revolutionaries. Of course, not all Chinese were happy about the CCP taking power. In order to make sure that all Chinese remain loyal to the new sheriff in town, the CCP decided to kill all of those who they deemed to be disloyal or critical of the regime. A pro-CCP history professor at Peking University gave an estimation of 712,000 deaths caused by this campaign. In 1950, the North Korea communist regime colluded with the Soviet Union and the Communist China to invade South Korea. While the Soviet Union mainly gave logistic support, China sent its troops to the Korean Peninsula. 73% of Chinese infantry troops served in Korea in rotation. That is 25 of the 34 armies, or 79 of the 109 infantry divisions. More than 52% of the Chinese Air Force, 55% of the tank units, 67% of the artillery divisions, and 100% of the railroad engineering division were sent to Korea as well. Total death, 3 million. In 1955, Mao declared that 5% of the CCP party members are hidden counter-revolutionaries and needed to be purged. According to the declassified archives, over 1.4 million intellectuals and officials were persecuted. 214,000 people were arrested, 22,000 executed, and a total of 53,000 died. In 1959, China ripped up the agreement they previously signed with Dalai Lama, promising autonomy to the people of Tibet. They invaded Tibet, and therefore Dalai Lama was forced to exile, and Tibetans purged and persecuted. After the death of China's first premier, Zhou Enlai, one of his speeches was published in Beijing Review in 1980. According to his speech, the numbers of casualties were 87,000, predominantly Tibetans. This number was also confirmed by Warren Smith, a writer from Radio Free Asia. Almost simultaneously, Mao decided to industrialize his country by turning farmers into workers. So he started another movement called Great Leap Forward, or what I call it, the Great Leap to Hell. Hundreds of millions of farmers were asked to abandon farming and start producing steel with a furnace in their backyard. As a result, grain production was seriously reduced despite good weather. Local officials grossly overstated grain production numbers, and the central government continued to export grain to other countries, leaving nothing for the Chinese to eat. When people got hungry, they also got angry, and they revolted. They were buried alive, clubbed to death by local militia. 3 million were killed. But even this number looks pale compared to the estimated 30 to 55 millions starved to death from 1958 to 1962. The great failure of the Great Leap Forward caused Mao to lose a considerable amount of power. In order to fight back and take back his power, another movement was set in motion, which was considered the prelude of the infamous Cultural Revolution. The Four Cleanups, that's what they called it, which aimed to cleanse politics, economy, organization, and ideology. It resulted 77,000 deaths. Then comes the Cultural Revolution that caused the death of 20 million people, according to the first vice chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, one of the 10 marshals of the CCP, Ye Jianying. The most grotesque and disgusting events happened in Guangxi, southern China, where massive cannibalism took place. I'm going to read something very disturbing and disgusting even from Wikipedia. According to Zheng Yi, a scholar who conducted detailed research on the topic in the late 1980s, and later smuggled some copies of official documents to the United States, at least 137 people, perhaps hundreds more, were eaten by others, and thousands of people participated in the cannibalism. Documents also record a variety of forms of cannibalism, including eating people as an after-dinner snack, slicing off the meat in big parties, dividing up the flesh so each person could take a large chunk home, barbecuing or roasting the liver, and so on. According to Yan Lebin, a member of the Ministry of Public Security who joined other investigation groups, in 1968, 37 people in Wushan County were eaten, and 113 officials of the county participated in eating human flesh, hearts, and livers. Chen Guorong, a peasant from Guigang County, who happened to pass by Wushan, was caught and killed by local militia because he was fat. His heart and liver were taken out while his flesh was distributed to 20 people. A female militia leader ate 6 human livers in total and cut the genitals of 5 men and soaked them in alcohol, which she would drink later, claiming that these organs were beneficial to her health. After the Committee of Revolution was established in Shaanxi County, a killing conference was held at Pingshan Square on September 1st, 1968, during which more than 10 officials and civilians were beaten to death. After the conference, a committee member, Li Hao, removed the hearts and livers from the corpses, sautéing them and preparing them as dishes for other representatives who attended the conference. According to Song Yongyi, a Chinese historian who worked at the California State University, Los Angeles, independent researchers in Guangxi counted a total of 421 people who were eaten in a single county. But there were reports of cannibalism across 27 counties in Guangxi. That's 2/3 of all the counties in Guangxi at the time. There was one man who was said to be in the so-called 5th category. Apparently, back then, people were categorized in 5 different categories. If you happen to be in the 5th category, too bad for you. This man was beaten to death where he stood. He had 2 kids, one of 11 and one of 14. The local officials and armed militia said it was important to eradicate such people, and so they not only killed these 2 children, they ate them too. This took place in Pubei County, Guangxi, where 35 people were killed and eaten in total. Most of them were rich landowners and their families. There was one landowner called Liu Zhengjiang, whose entire family was wiped out. He had a 17-year-old daughter, Liu Xiulan, who was gang raped by 9 people for 19 times, who then ripped open her belly and ate her liver and breasts. Then, in 1975, Khmer Rouge, aided and abetted by the Chinese Communist Party, seized control of Cambodia and started to implement the same murderous policies carried out by the Chinese Communist Party. During the 4 years of Khmer Rouge regime, more than 2 million of the entire 7.8 million Cambodians were wiped out. On September 9th, 1976, Mao died. During his 27 years of reign of terror, up to 60 million people, including Chinese, Koreans, Cambodians, and likely American soldiers, were killed because of his non-stop political campaigns and wars. That's the total population of today's Italy. Now, back to you. Do you know anyone in human history who has caused more death than Mao? Comment below and let me know. Also, I would like to take this opportunity to give a big shout out to all the freedom lovers and democracy fighters in Belarus. The abominable rule of Lukashenko must end. The election was a joke, and Lukashenko has been rigging the elections for decades. I am personally very touched by the story of the presidential candidate Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, a mother and wife who stood up and challenged a ruthless ruler in order to free her imprisoned husband and her country. So please find her on social media and let's support her together. This brings us to the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.